Is this ride-sharing protests? Uber and Lyft drivers across the country and the UK are set to strike today in just under an hour. The protest is over wages and working conditions. This as Uber prepares for an IPO on Friday. Both companies putting out statements, an Uber spokesperson saying this: whether it's more consistent earnings, stronger insurance protections, or fully funded 4-year degrees for drivers or their families, we'll continue working to improve the experience for and with drivers. Lyft said this: we know that access to flexible extra income makes a big difference for millions of people, and we're constantly working to improve how we can best serve our driver community. Lyft reported its quarterly numbers yesterday, and while they had $776 million in revenue, the company lost $211.5 million. Joining me right now, the Wall Street Journal's wealth management reporter, the host of the Wall Street Journal's Secrets of Wealthy Women podcast, Veronica Dagher. Great to see you, Veronica.
Great to be here.
And I'm happy that I was a guest.
Yes, you were an amazing guest.
On your podcast, so thank you for that. Your reaction to what's going on this morning with Uber and Lyft, first off.
Well, you know, these driver protests have been happening for a while. Latest one this morning, drivers are feeling frustrated because they feel like they are helping executives and investors in these companies get rich while they are struggling. They are having, they don't have the benefits they want, they don't have the hours they want, they don't have the pay they want. And so there's this class tension going on, first of all. But I think as an investor in Uber and in Lyft, these are bigger issues for these companies, right? Because you need the drivers. They're a key part of the business model. But Uber and Lyft already feel like they're paying these drivers too much. There's not an endless supply of drivers, so you can only cut their wages so much without them pushing back and saying, I quit. Yeah. There's tons of retention issues in these service businesses.
What's the turnover among, do we know?
It's
Uber
very high compared to your
50%, 100%, what?
I don't have the exact figure at the moment, but it's compared to, say, the restaurant service business. Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, very high, hard to keep these employees. People say, this sounds like a great side gig or even a full-time gig, and then they realize they're not getting paid what they expected to get paid. And so these issues aren't going to go away for these companies. They haven't really figured out a way how to keep these drivers happy.
Well, do you do it by paying them more? Going back in history, Henry Ford, the reason he doubled wages at his factory was he had huge turnover. When he doubled wages and cut the working hours by a third, suddenly it became something very desirable. The turnover problem disappeared. Is there something where they just suck it in and say, pay more and stop this turnover?
It's possible, right? In this economy, they might need to do that. But Uber's long-term game, though, and what they would really love to do is to go to these self-driving cars. Take the people out of the equation. Because some people will argue that's their only path to profitability.
I will point out that Lyft announced an extended partnership yesterday with Alphabet, self-driving car unit from Alphabet, Waymo, to allow people to hail robot taxis in the Phoenix area. So they're very focused on that and a way to get around these pay protests.
They could only do that in Phoenix, so that's where Waymo is, right?
Right.
And for a huge extension, that's a long ways off.
It's the long game. The Uber CEO has said that. Don't expect us to be profitable anytime soon. So if you're an investor, you really need to consider that in this company. But in terms of getting around some of these regulatory issues, which are really going to weigh on the company, already weighing on the company, going driverless may be their best play to profitability. I mean, that's probably a long time down the road.
When you talk about hours, though, Uber drivers get to set their own hours. That's one of the appeals of being an Uber driver. They don't have to get permission from their boss to say, I'm going to take off from my kid's school.
Exactly. That is a huge benefit, and that's why some people do it. They do it as a side business, or they can set their own schedule, have their own business. And some of those drivers have done a really smart and good job with that. For example, drivers who've been at it for a long time are actually getting shares in this IPO, getting a piece of it. But you know what? That's a very small amount of drivers who actually qualify for that.
All right, we'll be watching. This is going to be an interesting week to go public for Uber. After these huge sell-off that we've seen in stock prices, we'll see what happens on Friday, whether or not they pull the deal for now, because the markets are certainly not cooperating. Veronica, good to see you.
Thanks so much.
Congrats on that fantastic podcast that you have. Secrets of Wealthy Women. Veronica Dagher from the Wall Street Journal.